continuing this series, closing it out today, Kings and Kingdoms. This whole series has been about leading like David. And we've been doing this because I believe that all of you are leaders, all right? In different ways. You lead in different places, in different spheres of life. But every one of you is a leader, whether you realize it or not. And God has called you and me to be great leaders, right? We have something that the world doesn't have, and that's God in us. So we should be the best leaders in the world. We should have the best businesses. We should be the best employers. We should be the best employees. We should have the best startups, right? Because we got a lot of entrepreneurs up in here. We should be the best graphic designers. We should be the best chefs. We should be the best everything because we have God in us. And for too long, I believe like Christians have kind of just like huddled and hidden in the corner and claimed humility, right? Like, oh, I'm humble, so I just fly below the radar. And I'm like, no, in humility, we should say, it's not me, it's God that's giving me these opportunities and calling me and leading me to lead in a powerful way. It's not us, it's God. Our humility should elevate him, right? Should give him all the glory. So today I'm talking to you guys about how a leader leads. Everybody look at your neighbor and say, a leader leads. I know this makes a ton of sense. You guys are excited. So I grew up I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, all right? So I graduated from high school in 1999. And so some of you are going, dang, this dude is old. And some of you are going, dang, this dude is young, okay? So wherever you fall, you're welcome here, okay? But I grew up in the 80s and 90s, which meant I loved life because there were amazing cartoons in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I'm coming at you with the Disney afternoon. You know what I'm talking about. Those of you that were raised on this. So today, I'm going to throw up some cartoons, and I want to see how quick you guys are, and if you can guess what cartoon this is. All right, you guys ready? All right, you ready for me this time? Number one, let's see it. Gummy Bears. Ooh, not many of you knew that one. This was one of my favorites way back when I was a kid. This is the Gummy Bears. They would drink this juice, and then they'd bounce everywhere. It was awesome. Okay, next. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Oh my goodness. This was where it was at, all right? Love this show. Next. Darkwing Duck, Let's Get Dangerous. Oh man, you guys are pumped up about this one. This was definitely, this may have been my favorite cartoon of all time. But, okay, next. What else we got? Care Bears. The Care Bears. I definitely didn't watch this one, though. Definitely not. It says it right on it. My wife was supposed to bring one up. She did this for me without Tailspin on it. That's okay. It says it right there. I love Tailspin. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All right, so we're going to stop. Now, I wanted to end on this one because my son is obsessed with the Turtles, man, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He loves them. He lives for them. We've got nunchucks and swords. My wife buys them all kinds of violent toys. I don't know what's going on. Just kidding. It's all me. But they got masks and, man, they run around all day pretending to be Ninja Turtles. But my son's favorite Ninja Turtle is Leonardo. And he always says he loves Leonardo because he's the leader. And he loves the idea of being the leader. And so today I'm going to talk to you about how a leader leads because our culture is obsessed with leading, but I think that we've forgotten what it means to be a true leader and what a biblical leader actually looks like. And that's what we want to do today. We got to let our actions and our thinking all be informed by the scriptures. And that's how we must lead. That's how we must live. So we're going to be reading 2 Samuel chapter 15. If you have your Bibles, you can go there. I'm going to be reading a few verses. If you don't have your Bibles, that's okay. You can look on the screen. Hold up your Bible if you got one. I want to see the real spiritual people here today. Yes, I love it. Several of you have real Bibles. It's amazing. How many got your Bible on your iPad or iPhone? Hold that up. Okay. Yeah, you're not near as holy, but it's okay. I'm joking with you. Totally kidding. All right. The Bible on the iPhone is just as inspired, so it's great. I read my Bible on my iPhone literally every day. It's awesome. All right. Chapter 15, verse 1. We're in 2 Samuel. We've been looking at the life of David. David started out as a boy, shepherd boy, anointed king, serves Saul, who is the king. Saul is jealous and angry and bitter and suspicious. And so he starts trying to wipe out and kill David because he doesn't trust him, even though all David did was honor him. And then finally God takes Saul out. David becomes the king. He leads well. He's a good king. He makes some mistakes, as we saw last week. We talked about him and Bathsheba and how he made a huge mistake. He makes some mistakes along the way, but he overall is a good king. And then now he's becoming an old man. I mean, we've gone through his life. Now he's becoming an old man. And his own son decides to rise up and try to usurp him. So let's look at that. Chapter 15, verse 1. After this, Absalom got himself a chariot and horses and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom used to rise early and stand beside the way of the gate. And when any man had a dispute to come before the king for judgment, Absalom would call to him and say, "From what city are you?" And when he said, "Your servant is of such and such a tribe in Israel," Absalom would say to him, "See, your claims are good and right, but there is no man designated by the king to hear you." Then Absalom would say, "Oh, that I were judge in the land. Then every man with a dispute or cause might come to me, and I would give him justice." And whenever a man came near to pay homage to him, he would put out his hand and take hold of him and kiss him. Thus Absalom did to all of Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Verse 13. And a messenger came to David saying, "The hearts of the men of Israel have gone after Absalom." Then David said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, "Arise and let us flee, or else there will be no escape for us from Absalom. Go quickly, lest he overtake us, quickly and bring down ruin on us, and strike the city with the edge of the sword." And the king's servants said to the king, "Behold, your servants are ready to do whatever my lord the king decides." So the king went out, and his household after him, and the king left 10 concubines to keep the house. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for your word, for what you're speaking to us today. I pray you would challenge us from it, and through it, may we be better leaders and lead in a strong way the way you've called us to according to your word. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. So, I read this quote this week, and it's one of my favorite leadership quotes I've ever read because I think it gives us some practical advice in what it means to lead. Dee Hock, who was the founder and CEO of Visa, said this: "Control is not leadership. Management is not leadership. Leadership is leadership. If you seek to lead, invest at least 50% of your time in leading yourself, your own purpose, ethics, principles, motivation, conduct. Invest at least 20% leading those with authority over you, and 15% leading your peers." I love this because I think sometimes we get so obsessed with leading and leading people that we forget that in order to lead people well, we got to lead ourselves well. And the way to lead yourself well is by getting to know this. This is how you're going to lead yourself well. And at the end of the day, it's not even you leading you. It's God leading you. It's his word leading you. It's his insight and instruction guiding your life, guiding your leadership, and giving you the leadership principles that you need to have and that I need to have. So today I got 4 points for you about how leaders should lead. So leaders should lead, number 1, with integrity. Look at your neighbor, say integrity. Absalom makes a decision. He makes a decision to usurp his father. And it starts with a calculated action. So if you're paying attention to what I just read, Absalom positions himself at the gate. You see, in this day, the people had lands and flocks and crops, and often there would be disputes among them. Often there would be arguments among them. And so David comes, so the people would come to David to judge the situation. There weren't all the, lawyers we have today, the judges we have today. They would go to the king. And so as they're coming and they begin coming to David to judge, Absalom positions himself at the gate as they're entering into the city, and he stops them. He says, "Hey, guys, the king has no one to judge over you. There's nobody that can handle this, but I can help you, right? Let me help you out with this. If only I were the judge, I would give justice to your situation. So why don't you listen to me? Let me handle this for you. The king doesn't have time for you," is what Absalom was saying. This was calculated. Absalom knew what he was doing. I would call this, and we would call this today, Absalom did his dad dirty, all right? And that's how we would say it. Some of you understand this. You understand what it means to be done dirty. David has a choice to make, though. In order to protect his throne, he would have to become a Saul. That was the choice he had to make. You see, Saul was constantly trying to kill David. And while Absalom had been no David to David, the way David was to Saul, because David honored him and respected him and elevated him and served him, Absalom had been no David to David. And yet David still had a choice. If he was to protect his throne, he would have to become Saul. He would have to. He would have to seek out to kill his own son. And so he makes a choice, which poses a great question for you and for me today, all of us. And that's, will we choose power over our integrity? It's a question that you have to ask yourselves regularly, because I've found that compromise our integrity a little here and there. Compromise can actually be a shortcut to money. Compromise can be a shortcut to power. But it will also short out your integrity. It will also short out your character. Absalom was David's third son. I want you to understand this, because this is something we need to consider as to why this happened the way it did. And David made some mistakes along the way. David wasn't always integrous. He set some great examples of integrity, but he also set some terrible ones. You see, Absalom was David's third son. And Absalom was the child of his fourth wife, David's fourth wife. Her name was Maacah of Geshur. She was a princess of Geshur, which is a small Armenian kingdom northeast of the Sea of Galilee. And David's marriage was calculated, okay? David married her for political reasons, to secure that land, to protect his kingdom, for more stability. Now, some of you are thinking, okay, well, that's smart. That makes sense. But here's the thing. David, at the end, and where we are here in 1 Samuel chapter 15, David now has 8 wives and 7 sons, as well as multiple daughters. This was a recipe for jealousy and conflict. In the law, which David knew and the people knew, Deuteronomy 17:17, it says, he must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. Now understand that in this day, polygamy was normal, okay? So it wasn't a condemned thing even by God. And part of it was, it helped with them procreating, right? Filling the land. They would have multiple wives, but they weren't to have many wives. And so some of you guys think you got it rough with one wife, all right? Try 8, okay? As well as some concubines. Again, David wasn't always doing the right thing. But David started to act like all the other kings of the Middle East. He started acting like them, securing marriages for political alliances, for political power. And sometimes people think, well, what's the big deal about that? I don't see the problem. You see, the problem is God had called him to be different. God had called the nation of Israel to be different. God had called him to be a different kind of king, and he as the king began to look like all the other kings. So this is part of this process. It's part of what led to the conflict that he has with Absalom. You see, our compromises, our failure, there always follows fallout. And we talked about this last week. There's always fallout that follows our failure. And David begins to experience this. When I was in college, we went to chapel every single day. All right, I went to a Bible college. Some of you, it's hard for you to get to church once a week. Try going every single day, okay? And we had to go to chapel every single day. And when we went into chapel, we had to scan our cards. That's how they took track of our attendance. So we'd scan them, and then we'd go sit in our seat. And so one day, I'm walking in, and I'm about to scan my card, and one of my friends comes up to me and says, hey, Caleb, are you ready for the test right after this class or right after chapel? I'm like, test? Today? Some of you are like me. You never know what's going on in school. And so I'm like, today? Okay. I'm going to go back to my room then and study because I am not ready. I was not prepared. So I go back to my room, I study, go to the class, take the test, get a C probably. Hooray for being average. Any average people in here like me? You got me. You feel me? So I'm playing basketball at my college at the time. I played for 4 years there. I go to practice that evening, go to class the next day, and I get a note in class. I'm being called to the vice president's office over the whole college. I have to leave my class. And this doesn't happen. It's not like high school when you're getting notes and your mom's pulling you out of school. And so I'm like, oh, dang, what's about to happen? I'm probably about to get some reward or award, right? They're about to honor me. So I'm like rolling out. I'm like all pumped. I'm thinking about all the great things that are about to happen. Like, I'm going to get blessed up in here, right? So I roll into the office. I sit down, and he says to me, Caleb, we're going to have to suspend you from the basketball team for the rest of the year. And I'm like, why? And he says, Caleb, somebody saw you go into chapel, scan your card, and leave. And you know that that's not allowed. And so we're going to have to suspend you for the rest of the year. And I said, hold on a second. I said, why don't you go into your computer and see if I actually scanned my card? And he's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So he goes in, punches it in, punches my name. Oh, wow, Caleb, you didn't scan your card. You're good to go, man. Have a great day. I'm like, thank you, sir. You have a great day too. Next time, maybe look into this a little deeper before you call me in. Sometimes you got to keep it real with people. So I roll out. I'm walking out, and literally God spoke to me. And he said, Caleb, one compromise could literally change your life. One compromise could literally affect the rest of your life. Because honestly, I don't know if I'd be standing here today if I had scanned my card, and we called it scan and jam, all right? That's what we called it back in the day. If I had scanned and jammed, I don't know if I'd been suspended from the basketball team, because that was part of my driving force in being there at the time. I don't know if I would be standing here before you today, because I finished my college, my Bible college degree, and part of it, a big part of it, was because of the sport that I was playing. I don't know if I'd be standing here today before you. And it was a reminder, and God, I believe, wants to remind you today that little compromises can literally sabotage your character and your integrity. Little compromises. It starts small, and my challenge to you, and I know it's not easy, is to continue to walk the straight and narrow. And people ask me, they say, Caleb, what's God's will for my life? And I heard a pastor say it, and I've told you it before, but a pastor said this to me before. He said, Caleb, God's will is doing the next right thing. That's God's will for your life. So I've made a choice, and I encourage you to make the choice that I will do the next right thing in my life. Because I want to do God's will, and it's the next right thing. The next thing he puts in front of me, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to make right choices, because a leader leads with integrity. The best way to sabotage your own leadership is to lack integrity, to compromise, to make little compromises along the way so that you can get a leg up, so you can be on the fast track to power. But we can't be those people. Leaders lead with integrity. Number 2, leaders lead with honor. David chooses to leave. You guys heard it when I read it, right? He chooses to leave. He chooses to remain a David and not become a Saul. He takes off. And this was, a couple parts, but one of the big reasons that he chooses to leave is because he knew that if the nation went to war, if they came, he actually said, and I read the verse, it says that the sword will strike the city. That there would have been some serious fallout. Innocent people would have died, as well as warriors, as well as soldiers. So David is trying to protect his people. And not only that, he's trying to protect his character. He says, I won't stretch out my arm and kill my own son. Even though it's possible, even though I could do it, I refuse to become a Saul. I will stay a David. There's a story as David's leaving the city about Ittai the Gittite. And some of you have probably never heard this. You've never read this part. But if we go to chapter 15, verse number 18, David's leaving, and these Gittites, 600 of them, had come into the city the day before because they're exiles from their homeland. And they've come and they say, we're going to serve you, David. And here's what happens. All his servants pass by him, all the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and all the 600 Gittites who had followed him from Gath, passed on before the king. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, why do you also go with us? Go back and stay with the king, for you are a foreigner and also an exile from your home. You came only yesterday, and shall I today make you wander about with us, since I know not where? Go back and take your brothers with you, and may the Lord show steadfast love and faithfulness to you. But Ittai answered the king, as the Lord lives and my lord the king lives, wherever my lord the king shall be, whether for life or death, there also will your servant be. This is a great example of honor in two ways. The first is David honoring someone below him. Think about this. You're leaving the city. You know Absalom has an army, and you know they're going to come after you. I'm thinking, I got 600 dudes, right, with swords. They're coming with me, right? They're going where we go because that's a little extra protection. But David doesn't do that. He wants to honor them and protect them. And he says, look, just go back. Go back. In fact, he even calls Absalom the king. He says, go back with the king. Go back to the palace. You'll be safe. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything. Just go back. You'll be safe. May God bless you. He shows honor to someone below him. And too often we see people as commodities, don't we? We see people as a means to an end, as people that we can use to accomplish something. But David didn't have that perspective. He was a man of honor, and he said, no, I want to protect these men. They don't owe me anything. Even though it would be nice to have them with me, I'm going to send them back. And then he returns honor with honor. Ittai, the Gittite, returns honor with honor, and he says, no, we're with you. Wherever you go, whether in death or life, we will go. And this is a great reminder because in our culture, we don't have honor. We don't honor people, and Christians are the worst. Maybe not, but we're bad. We might not be the worst, but we're bad, man. I've seen all y'all's on social media, and we just disrespect everybody we come across. There's no honor. We don't honor our president. We don't honor our government. We don't honor our friends. We don't honor people that we come in contact with on social media. We just rip them apart. We need to be people of honor. God's people, leaders are people of honor. I want to show honor to those above me, because we're always going to have someone over us in some way, to those beside me, and to those below me. And I don't mean that in a negative way, say below me, but people that might be serving underneath me, that I have some level of authority over. And all of you have people below you in terms of authority, beside you and above you. Will you choose honor? Let's choose honor. Leaders lead with honor. My wife, she's been on me for the last 2 months. Every week, Caleb, when are we going to go on a date? Caleb, when are we going to go on a date? Caleb, when are we going to go on a date? Right? Week after week, on me about it. When are we going on a date? When are we going on a date? And our lives are busy. I mean, like all of you, we got 3 kids. We have a 7-month-old. And I'm like, next week will probably work, or maybe the week after. And week after week became 2 months. And finally, like a couple weeks ago, or last week, I think, she's like, Caleb, when are we going to go on a date? I was like, you want a date? You plan it, woman, right? I'm like, I will go. I will go wherever you want me to go. Get the babysitter, set up the night, and I'm there. And then God slapped me around. You ever have God slap you around a little bit? Whap, whap. We need to get backhanded by God every once in a while. Slap me around. Said, Caleb, you are called to honor your wife. And so this last week, I set it up. I got a babysitter, made a reservation, got a night. So this is a confession. This isn't like, oh, you're such a great husband. No, I suck as a husband right now, okay? Set it all up. Made sure she pumped. Moms, you understand what I'm talking about? 7-month-old. Okay, I'm keeping it real this morning. Set it up, and we went out to dinner. And let me tell you something. It was like medicine for our souls and for our relationship. It was amazing, like just how much closer we both felt to each other after one night alone. And God just reminded me and said, Caleb, you cannot let this happen again. You cannot let it go this long again. And here's the thing. Some of us are actually good at honoring people around us. Honor our bosses, honor our coworkers, right? Honor people we come across just in life. honor people at church, you honor your pastors, and then we don't even honor the people closest to us. We don't honor our wives. We don't honor our husbands. We need to be people of honor. And honor is always accompanied by love. Let's love. Let's show honor. Leaders lead with honor. Number 3, leaders lead with grace. This is one of the most powerful moments of the story that I believe I'm about to share with you. And in this moment, David responds to cursing with grace. So let me read it. We're going to chapter 16 now. I'm going to be reading for verse 5. And David and his men are still wandering. They don't know where they're going. They don't know where they're going to end up. They're just basically on the run. They know Absalom's eventually going to come after them. And they're just wandering around. Verse number 5 says this. When King David came to Bahurim, there came out a man of the family of the house of Saul whose name was Shimei. I like that name. That's great. Shimei. Everybody say Shimei. The son of Gera. And as he came, he cursed continually. And he threw stones at David and all the servants of King David and all the people and all the mighty men who were on his right hand, on his left. And Shimei said as he cursed, "Get out. Get out, you man of blood, you worthless man. The Lord has avenged on you all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. And the Lord has given the kingdom into the hand of your son Absalom. See, your evil is on you, for you are a man of blood." Then Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and take off his head." I love that. If it's me, I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Off with his head. But the king said, "What have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because the Lord has said to him, curse David, who then shall say, why have you done so?" And David said to Abishai and to all his servants, "Behold, my own son seeks my life. How much more now may this Benjamite? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to. It may be that the Lord will look on the wrong done to me, and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing today." We need to respond with grace. We need to be leaders who lead with grace, even when we're cursed. And as a leader, you're going to be cursed. As a leader, you're going to get some flack, right? People are going to come at you. People are going to betray you like David was betrayed. And sometimes we get all upset about it. We get all bitter. And we start saying, "God, why would you let this happen to me? God, you need to make this right. God, this is wrong, what they're doing to me." And all the while, God may be saying, "No, I'm doing it to you because you need to learn something. I'm doing it to you because I'm doing something in you. And we want to make it right because we think it's not fair." It's not fair. Guess what? What happened to Jesus wasn't fair. Guess what? Some of you have been betrayed. Jesus was betrayed. One of his disciples, one of his 12 who he hung out with for years, betrayed him with a kiss. So if Jesus could be betrayed, guess what? You can too. We need to shift our perspective, I believe, to when we're wronged. And I'm not saying to you today, just roll over and die. Let people walk all over you. Let people trample you like you're nothing. That's not what I'm saying today. But what I am saying is you can't control what people do, but you can control how you react to what they do. And as leaders and godly leaders, we must react with grace. That's what will set you apart. That's what will show that you're different in your leading. That there's something different about you. It's the grace with which you live and walk and how you respond even when you're wronged. And that in it you trust God with it, because that's what he does. David says, "You know what? Maybe God sent him to curse me. But not only that, maybe God will see his cursing on me and bless me because of it. So I'm going to take it." Some of us, we need to start just taking it, shouldering it. The Bible talks about it. It says that you're blessed when you're cursed. It says you're blessed when you suffer. And I know, like, this isn't typical church stuff I like to hear in church, right? Wait a second. I'm going to have trouble. I'm going to be cursed. Yes, and you'll be blessed because of it. If not in this life, then one day in eternity. So start trusting God. Don't roll over and play dead. Stand your ground, but do it with grace. Do it with love. Do it in a right way. This is what David does. Sometimes what's right is to take it, to shoulder it, to let it happen. God will make it right when you trust him. I'm going to close right now. So if everyone could just be still. We're going to have a lot of movement today. I'd appreciate it. So we're not distracting anybody else. I got 5 minutes. Stick with me. And we're going to be done. Number 4, fourth and finally. A leader leads with forgiveness. You see, if we go back a little bit in the story, we see that there's something that's taken place. And that's this reality and this fact that Absalom has never forgiven his father. He's never forgiven him. And we got to go back a few chapters and read and see that what's taking place in their life. You see, David, like I told you, had multiple wives, multiple sons. It's a recipe for conflict and disaster. And one of his sons, named Amnon, is in love with his sister Tamar. This is Absalom's blood sister. And so he's like desiring, it says that he's sick. He loves her so much. Some of you single people are there right now. You're just sick. You're so in love. It's a beautiful thing. But he sets up a trap. And he sets it up and he says he's sick and he requires, he says, hey, my king, he asks David, can you send Tamar into my chamber to cook food for me and feed me? So she comes in and it says that he takes hold of her to lie with her. And she says to him, don't do this thing. She was a virgin. And in this day, it was normal for them to marry their sisters. She's a half-sister. And she says, if you just ask the king, he'll give me to you in marriage. I will marry you. She literally tells him, I will marry you. Why would you do this thing right now? But he needs it in that moment. And this is a whole other teaching we could have about how when we desire things and we want it in that moment, in that instant, that we often ruin ourselves, lead ourselves to destruction because God's timing is different and his plans may be different. And we need to do things in a right way. But he takes her and he lies with her. He basically rapes her. The Bible keeps it real, man. He basically rapes her. He shames her and she goes out and everyone knows it. And Absalom is infuriated. This is his sister. And his brother has literally raped her. And it says that David is angered, but he does nothing. He's angry about it, but he doesn't do anything about it. And so Absalom waits. And 2 years later, he kills Amnon, takes him out. Then he runs for his life. And again, David does nothing. Now his son has raped one of his daughters. He does nothing. His other son kills the other son, and he does nothing. And then he invites Absalom back home finally. No problem. All this led up to this moment of Absalom harboring unforgiveness and bitterness towards his father. And so now he says, I'm going to take over this kingdom. I'm going to take over this kingdom. And here's the lesson for us. Leaders lead with forgiveness. When you lead, you will be wronged. You will be betrayed. You will be hurt. But if you don't forgive, bitterness will grow in your heart and will lead you to destruction. And that's what Absalom does. He lets bitterness grow. He lets unforgiveness grow. And eventually it leads him to usurp and take over his father's kingdom. Here's the end of the story. They go to battle. Absalom comes after David. David's raised up his army and they go to battle. And David already knows he's going to win. You want to know why? Because David knows he has God on his side. Because he didn't respond like Saul. He responded in a right way. He left when he could have stayed and fought. And so here comes Absalom ready to take him out. And David says to his commander, he says to him, deal gently with my son. What he's saying is don't kill him. save him, protect him. What he's doing is he's forgiving him. He's saying, yeah, he's taken my throne and he's betrayed me and he's gone behind my back and done a lot of shady stuff. But I already forgive him. I already forgive him. Deal gently with him. Don't kill him. As they go to battle, David's army wins. Absalom is killed in the battle and David weeps for his son because he loves him, because he's forgiven him. But an even greater moment of forgiveness comes, I believe, right after this. You see, all these tribes and people who had sided with Absalom, they come before the king and they're ready to receive their punishment, to receive their due penalty. So they come before the king, they come before David, and they're like, here we are, we know we sided with Absalom, we betrayed you, we fought for him. And David says to them, you are forgiven, go in freedom. And in a moment, David says, you're good. You're free. I forgive you. There will be no more bloodshed and no more pain on my watch. You're free. David sets a great example. Not a perfect example, but a great example. But there's one who set an even greater example. You see, what I just described to you is exactly what Jesus did for us. We deserved a due penalty, right? We deserved punishment, death for our sin. But Jesus came and was nailed to a cross and shouldered all of our mistakes, all of our sin, all of our past, everything we've ever done. He said, I'll take it. Just give it to me. I'll take it. You are free. Go. You are free. You are forgiven. The King of Kings came to set us free. That's what this church is all about. It's about Jesus. This story, this Bible, it's a love story about a hero that came because he loved you and me so much that he gave up his life for you. He took our penalty. He took our pain. He took our sin onto himself so that you could be free. He said, you're free, go. You're free, go. And so today, some of you need to follow the leader of all leaders. You need to follow Jesus. You didn't come in here by accident. Jesus wanted you here. God wanted you here. He's speaking to your hearts right now. And may we be leaders who lead well. May we be leaders of integrity and honor. May we be leaders of grace. May we be leaders of forgiveness. Would you bow your heads with me across this place?